Good morning. I'm getting a video moment coming on, which is why I'm making a video, you see. Simply put, speaking about art and the borderline of whether art is in fact an extension of consciousness or within the realm of personal identity and cultural, politic, nationalistic language signals, things like this. Or could, yeah, is art about being a product on the supermarket shelf? Not to refute the completely desirable aspect of transactions of rectangles for people's viewing pleasure and language creation from the artist's point of view. There's nothing wrong with art as domestic object, and yet, it's like a picture of a landscape, isn't it? In artistic histories, historical. Uh, so a picture of a landscape is not the landscape, right? So I think what I'm getting at here is what is the function of art and what is the function of imagination, and what is the difference between the safe, the tame, and the wild and the true, and the out there and the in here, like consciousness, the human spirit, imagination. We live in a world where we have so many dangerous narratives and storylines that are posited to us about things happening out there in the wild by terrorist state operators with names like Israel and Britain and Russia and so-called leaders and these corporate entities that are battling each other. This is the world, and we're assaulted with crime and systemic neurosis of our own inner wars. And I'd simply say that the human being is a wondrous and beautiful thing. And while the apocalypse and chaos and the fourth industrial revolution, as it's apparently been called, the Fourth Reich, some people also think that is part of the money. I'm just simply wanting the majesty of the human heart and imaginative possibilities, because the underlining sponsor of all the human generated cultural wilderness is all sponsored by nature. It's all sponsored by the biome of the earth. Well, for that matter, the biome of my gut flora, which I've been putting L-reuteri in. L-reuteri being a pretty good immune and testosterone increase. Yeah, L-reuteri bacteria. But anyway, you get the point. So from a sort of macro holistic sense, I sort of locate art as a kind of hormonal response inside the human animal to the largely ignored and used and betrayed human aspect of our nature as a being, you know, part of the ecology, you know, of time and space, and you know, the right of ascendant intelligence, and you know, the assertion of some kind of universal driver, you know, of being, and that art's responsibility would be to explore and express the inexpressible around being, and that includes being in the battlefield of, you know, contemporary culture, mentally, emotionally, psychologically. But to not remember that we are part of emanations of the sun and the earth, and forces so fundamental to our being that we forget that we are made of, you know, star stuff, of greater forces, and that, you know, the human imagination, the abstract capacity for expansion and complex, multi-dimensional language forming, you know, these things that made us bury our dead, these things that made us cultivate animals and grain, these things, you know, this technology of self-awareness, you know, this thing we called science, you know, scrying, you know, to divide. Art is still a taproot to our innermost being of fundamental consciousness of the cosmos. I believe that, you know. I don't like religion too much. I don't like consensus trance too much. I don't like hierarchy too much. Know thyself, be sovereign, you know, quite like Socrates. You know, I respect, you know, different people have different needs in these regards. I think being an artist is an individualistic pursuit, and it's always in relation to other cultural patterns around us. It makes it a very difficult and lonely position, of course. And, you know, one has to do a tap dance between, you know, the domestic and the full-fledged large language models of what I've been doing. Large language models. Yeah, so this is just a rant to sort of pull it back. You know, the context is always the mystery, regardless of what ideological graffiti we, you know, write over our experience of the world. I love it when neuroscientists and meditation, you know, advanced meditation people sort of talk about we wouldn't know what a tree was. You know, there's a point in our brain development when we call something something, and then we don't see it anymore. You know, but if we were to take away the name and just see it for what it actually is, you know, as an experience, as a being, as a texture, as a shape, as a relationship to the wind, you know, like, it's the naming of things which separates, you know, and controls, and this is a mental thing. So just as the human being, you know, is crawling inside, you know, another synthetic sheath of abstraction called, you know, the Internet of Things and digital IDs and, you know, state digital concentration camp gulags, you know, this sort of collectivized separation from self and world. The reverse is also true. You know, we are fundamentally part of this before name, before number, before language. And that's what really interests me about,
fundamental existence and being, what forms of latent intelligence is within all manifestations, because I'm sure the tree has something to tell me. And I think this is the way ancients and indigenous people got information. They read, they could. There's a subtler language underneath the verbal. So language isn't actually just these little abstract mouth noises that humans make from their cerebral cortex and things. Language is a kind of knowing that is innate to, well, I imagine what a parent must know with a child. And the greater parent isn't the state of Israel or the New Zealand government or any other, fear factor. The greater parent, is always the sky, the earth, and the sun. And I, being the Son of Man, like you, especially if you're a woman, you can be the Son of Man too. I don't know how that works. I think we've made that people can be that now too, with different letters and names. Anyway, I'm being a silly bugger. God bless. All right, this is my day. Apparently it is a Aries day of full moon. Probably why I'm being a lunatic. Kia ora.